Southwest Airlines opened its ninth route last week to El Paso. Its jet fleet has tripled since it began operations 6 years ago. Its passenger load increased 50% last year. 1977, according to its accountants, should be just as profitable. Braniff International is known in the industry as the money machine. It's one of the most efficient moneymakers in the airline business. In fact, in 1974, during the height of its legal entanglements with Southwest, a year in which it claimed it could be ruined by Southwest's alleged unfair trade practices, it reported its most profitable year in its 43-year history. Yet of the two airlines, Braniff has been the loser, not in terms of profit, but in terms of public image and wasted time. Braniff's losing streak began on June 18, 1971, when Southwest loaded its first passengers at Love Field for the 40-minute flight to Houston. That event happened only after Braniff tried to put Southwest out of business by claiming that it would illegally carry interstate passengers, something Southwest is forbidden to do. It was something of a miracle, then, that Southwest had a plane to fly that June day. By keeping Southwest in court for 3 years, some of the money men and institutions who were to help Southwest buy its first 3 planes had backed out, fearing the Braniff suit would be successful. The president of Southwest, Lamar Muse, who can be a bully as well as a charmer, held most of the money men in line. Muse was aided by the company's chief counsel, Herb Kelleher, who issued legal opinions right and left, which he gave to Muse to help persuade investors that the Braniff suits would not be successful. And although, as we now know, the suits were not successful, they did keep Southwest in a state of penury for the first 2 years of its existence. At one point, Southwest had only $145 in the bank, and Muse would lend his American Express card to the company to buy jet fuel and other essentials. The legal attack against Southwest was only one of several. Another was through the so-called price wars, the most famous being the $13 air war of 1973. Braniff, like most other air carriers, is regulated by the Civil Aeronautics Board in Washington. CAB carriers charge only what the CAB allows. Therefore, any price increase or decrease must be approved by the CAB. Southwest isn't under that restraint. Because it operates only within Texas, it isn't liable to CAB regulation and can charge whatever it wishes for flights. The $13 air war began when Braniff lowered its fares from $26 to $13 from Dallas to Houston, $7 less than Southwest. The CAB, by the way, had granted permission to Braniff to lower its fares in order to remain competitive. Southwest responded and won by virtue of staying alive. But Southwest also won because the public began to perceive it for the first time as the David pitted against a Goliath competitor. Part of that image is due to the facts as they were, but part of it was due to Camille Keith. She's the assistant vice president for public relations and a woman who's charmed the local press to her company's advantage. By having kept Muse or anyone else in the company accessible, by offering free airline rides and other amenities, she made it difficult for a reporter not to write favorably in some small way about Southwest. Keith's job is made all the easier by Braniff itself. Jerry Cox is Camille Keith's counterpart at Braniff. He's been described by Texas Monthly as the corporate incarnation of Ron Ziegler. As accessible as Southwest executives are to the press, the head men of Braniff are equally inaccessible. As patronizingly helpful as Keith is to the press, Jerry Cox is as unhelpful, a fact that has earned him the title of Mr. Negative in the Dallas press corps. And so, it's generally acknowledged that Southwest's play off Braniff's tight corporate image has worked to Southwest's advantage. Surely one of the worst blights against Braniff's image came in 1972 when it and Texas International were told to meet a grand jury in San Antonio on charges of plotting to put Southwest out of business illegally. Southwest's Lamar Muse had spoken a number of times to federal prosecutors about alleged irregularities in the trade practices of his competitors. Among the charges Muse was said to have made against Braniff and Texas International are these: that Braniff and Texas International conspired to shuttle passengers between their airlines when one or the other had mechanical problems without their passengers' consent in order to keep them from flying Southwest. that executives of Braniff threatened the First National Bank in Dallas with a withdrawal of all of its deposits unless First National stopped acting as a stock transfer agent for Southwest. That Braniff ticket agents told customers considering flights on Southwest that Southwest's maintenance was poor and hinting that an air disaster was imminent. That Braniff threatened to stop its order for the Docutel baggage system for its flight operations at DFW Airport unless Docutel's parent company, the First of Texas, withdrew a financial analysis of Southwest which showed the airline to be a good investment for stockholders. That Braniff threatened the brokerage firm of Rauscher Pierce with financial reprisals unless the firm agreed not to underwrite any of Southwest's stock offerings. That Braniff and Texas International conspired to place friends on the Texas Aeronautics Commission, the agency which authorizes Southwest to operate. That Braniff and Texas International conspired to keep Southwest under surveillance at ticket counters and on Southwest's aircrafts. This surveillance was allegedly arranged to monitor Southwest's interstate business. The original grand jury was dismissed without handing down indictments. A second grand jury was impaneled in 1974. Indictments were issued, but dismissed by the presiding judge because of impermissible government conduct. This last grand jury was convened last May. Southwest Airlines is here to stay. Braniff and Texas International know that. They also know that the most important item on their agendas is to clean up their corporate images. They have proven that their own worst enemy is themselves.